My name is Nora Ellis. I'm 34, and if you had asked me yesterday what my life looked like 2 months from now, I would have told you peonies, string lights, and a dance floor my dad swore he wouldn't touch, but absolutely would. I'm a structural engineer, the kind who measures twice and still checks a third time out of superstition. My house is a modest craftsman that leans into the late sun. The floors complain like old men, and my rescue mutt, Scout, considers himself foreman of all projects. It's not glamorous, it's honest. Oliver Hart, my boyfriend, has a smile that gets him seated at any table. He's 32, a development manager at an arts nonprofit, fluent in 3 dialects: Grant language, charm, and therapy speak. His parents live in a Lake Oswego glass and reclaimed timber monument to restraint, where minimalism costs more than anything maximalist I own. And then there's Rowan Pierce, Oliver's ex-girlfriend. To him, she's family. To me, she's a podcast host with a brand: open bonds, evolved love, fluid attachments. She has a key to the heart house. She's at every birthday, every holiday, every casual Sunday, like a third arm you're told is natural if only you'd grow. I tried to be progressive. I tried to let transcending traditional boundaries be something other than a euphemism. But an uneasiness lodged under my ribs like a nail that never set right. It hummed when Rowan walked into rooms that weren't hers and took chairs that weren't offered. Sunday evening. The Hart dining room glows the way money glows, softly, as if it never has to ask for permission. The table blooms with linen and silver. My mother places a basket of her rolls at the center like it's an altar. My father wears his good shirt. Oliver squeezes my hand under the table, the signal for we're okay. I nod. I want to believe him. Halfway through the salmon, the lock clicks. No knock, no bell. The door opens with the right of tenure. Rowan walks in wearing late like a choice. She slides into the head chair, Thomas Hart's chair, as if the house has always been shaped around her. She says, "Perfect timing." And Oliver's face does that brightening I've watched too closely for a year. My parents try polite. My mother's jaw tightens. My father's fork hovers, directionless. Across the table, Marilyn clasps smiles like approval is an heirloom she polishes for guests. The conversation drifts toward the engagement party. Venues, color palette, a band. Oliver's mother swears, is tasteful. My mom, earnest, harmless, asks, "Will Rowan be attending your engagement party too, Oliver?" It's the quiet that answers first. Oliver sets down his fork. He doesn't look at my mother. He looks at me. His voice is so calm I feel foolish for bracing. "Rowan will always be part of my life. She is family. If you can't accept that, Nora, then maybe you shouldn't marry me." There's a small choreography around the table. Marilyn's nod, Thomas's satisfied exhale, Rowan's half smile like applause withheld for timing. The room waits for me to audition. Do I bargain? Do I prove myself enlightened enough to keep the man and his constellation? Inside, a beam shifts. I think of load paths, of how a structure fails quietly before it fails loudly. I think of Scout's warm head against my thigh on the nights I stared at the ceiling rehearsing generous words for feelings that were not generous to me. I fold my napkin once, twice, clean, squared. "Okay," I say. Not raised, not trembling, just okay. I turn to my parents. "Let's go." The expression on Oliver's face passes through confusion, then clarity, like he has only now translated the word I chose. Okay, didn't mean capitulation. It meant exit. The night air outside the Hart house is colder than it looks. My mother doesn't ask questions until we're in the car. My father keeps his eyes on the road and his mouth on the line he's held my whole life. Let her say it first. He rehearsed it, I tell the dashboard. They all did. At home, Scout spirals at my feet, excited because I'm moving quickly. I pull out banker's boxes. I label with a Sharpie as if outcomes harden when you name them. Shirts, books, French press, he swore made better coffee, skincare I never understood the order of. Everything I am not taking with me to a life I am now uncertain I want. I email Grace, our wedding planner, with professional brevity. Cancel all bookings. Per prior agreement, funds are Hart family's responsibility. Confirm closures EOD. It's amazing how much relief lives inside a period. Oliver texts, "We need to talk. You overreacted." Rowan posts an episode teaser. This week, boundaries or cages? The caption smiles like a trap. I sleep for the first time in weeks. Morning is clean. I'm in work gear, hair thrown up, blueprint brain humming. I call the registry platform and close our joint fund. The rep says, either named party can make changes. I say, great, and mean it. At 6 p.m., Oliver lets himself in with his key. Scout lowers his head and gives one old man huff. Oliver follows the path I've staged. Boxes, stacked by height like a skyline. What is this? He asks, but he's smiling the way people smile at detours they're sure still lead to their destination. You'll want to arrange pickup tonight, I say. Locks change this weekend. I'll notify you legally. He blinks, the smile phrase. You're being dramatic. Then the voice he uses when closing donors. Patient, warm, unyielding. Last night was a test, Nora, a test of capacity. You say you want a partnership built on growth, but growth requires discomfort. Rowan is family. You don't test loyalty by demanding betrayal, I say. The line lands in the room like I threw it from farther away. His jaw works. You're scared of new models. That's okay. You can evolve. There it is, the word they wear like a uniform. Evolve. The implication that my discomfort is a primitive limb I haven't learned to shed. My phone buzzes. Noah. A photo fills the screen. Rowan in the lobby of a Pearl District building with a leasing agent. Beneath, a clipboard with an application. The names are clear, even blurred. Co-tenants, Rowan Pierce and Oliver Hart. I feel it in my knees first. The body's beautiful loyalty, how it knows to soften before the mind accepts impact. I hand him the screen. His throat clicks. That small, involuntary sound people make when the story they sold themselves meets the invoice. He starts talking too fast. It's an experiment, a content house vibe. We're documenting intentional co-living for couples who value intersections. You'd be the primary. She's legacy. You two would love each other if you'd... No, I say, and the word is a beam set true. For a long second, we just stand there with the boxes between us like a miniature city. Foundations, frames, facades. I realize I don't want him to understand. Understanding would ask me to translate again, to map my insides to his vocabulary. You threw away $90,000, he says finally, soft with wonder, as if I've done a magic trick. I didn't throw away anything, I say. I refuse to be repurposed. He looks around the room like it will tell him what to do with me. When it doesn't, he lifts one box, then another, clumsy, a man surprised by the weight of his own things. At the door he pauses. You'll regret this. Maybe, I say, but if I do, it will be my regret. The door closes. Scout pads over and leans his entire, stubborn weight into my shins, the way he does when thunder thinks it owns the sky. I sit on the floor among the boxes. The house settles. Somewhere inside the walls, an old pipe knocks. Once, twice, as if something loose has finally found its seat. I whisper into Scout's fur. Okay. Outside, evening slides down the street. Tomorrow, the emails and explanations will begin. The hearts rewriting the narrative, Rowan turning pain into content, Oliver searching for language that makes this principled. But tonight, it's just me, a dog who trusts me, and a structure that hasn't failed, only realized which loads it won't carry. The thing about foundations, you don't always see them. You feel them when they hold. You feel them more when they don't. Morning arrives like a clean blueprint. White space, crisp lines, the soft creak of a house that has decided to help. I wake before my alarm, the kind of awake that isn't energy so much as clarity. Scout stretches, thumps his tail twice, then stations himself by the door as if to say, let's choose the materials today. Coffee, email. I open a new message to Grace, our wedding planner, and the words fall into order like rebar. Please cancel all bookings associated with the Hart Ellis event. Per prior agreement, Hart family funds remain their responsibility. Kindly confirm written closure by end of day. I read it 3 times, checking load paths in the language. No leaks, no apologies. I move through the house, collecting the pieces of Oliver that have been living here under diplomatic immunity. Shirts with buttons like coins, brunch casual jackets, his ceramic pour-over that insists morning is a ritual and not a need. I write labels with a thick marker, my hand steady. Bedroom, Oliver, office, Oliver, kitchen, Oliver. The repetition is soothing. Identity reclaimed through inventory. Grace calls as I'm taping the last box. Nora, are you sure? Her voice is velvet wrapped around worry. I'm sure, I tell her. If it helps, consider this a building deemed structurally unsound. Closing it saves lives. There's a beat, then a soft, conspiratorial exhale. Copy that. I'll have cancellations processed and send confirmations by afternoon. And, for what it's worth, you're okay last night? I've never seen a cleaner cut on a messier table. I don't have words for the gratitude that loosens my chest. Thank you, Grace. I take the registry fund next. The platform's interface is cheerful, pastel, unprepared for this kind of ending. Months of gifts scroll past like well-meaning handwriting. A honeymoon we won't take, a future home library we won't shelve, a stand mixer my mother insisted would be our marriage's third partner. I hit close account, and the site cheerfully asks me to confirm. I do. The rep's email lands seconds later. As both named parties are authorized, we've processed your request. I step outside with Scout and stand on the porch for a long minute, listening to a city do what it always does without permission. A cyclist swears at a delivery van. A neighbor argues with a trash can that will not be reasoned with. Scout finds a patch of sunlight and claims it like a deed. Back inside, I return the house to its original setting, the way you slide a project back to true north before beginning again. His overly soft blanket, folded. His plant, rehomed to the porch. The toothbrush that never learned to share, laid carefully on top of one of the bathroom boxes so it can leave with dignity. At noon, Marilyn calls. I don't answer. A text arrives immediately after. Let's not be rash. We can talk about integrating long-term bonds in a way that honors everyone. I stare at the sentence for a full minute. It feels like a client requesting we keep the cracked facade because it photographs well. I put my phone face down. By 3, the confirmations from Grace land in my inbox like a stack of stamped permits. Venue, catering, flowers, band, all canceled. I forward the entire chain to Oliver with a subject line even a publicist couldn't misinterpret. Cancellations confirmed. In the body, 2 words, as discussed. He replies within seconds, as if he's been waiting for my sanity to fail. Nora, stop. You misunderstood. Last night was a threshold moment. If you'd slept on it, you'd have realized this is an invitation, not an ultimatum. My fingers hover over the keys. An invitation to what? To live in a house where someone else holds the spare key? To applaud a speech I didn't write on a day that was supposed to be mine? I don't send any of it. Instead, I write, pick up your things by tonight. Locks change Saturday. Send. I take Scout for a long walk at dusk. The air has that summer left early bite. My phone keeps buzzing and I keep letting it. When we get home, there's a car I know at the curb. Oliver's. Sleek, persuasive in the driveway light. He doesn't knock. The door opens to his copy of my key and a man who still believes doors prefer him. He stops short at the sight of his life arranged with an engineer's mercy. Nora. He says my name in a dozen notes. Disbelief, charm, admonishment, appeal. This is theatrics. It's logistics, I say. He moves through the stacks, touching the edges with a tenderness that almost fools me. You're making last night into a referendum on us. It was a referendum. You held the vote in front of an audience. I meet his eyes, and you counted their nods as ballots. He flinches like I flicked water at him. You're being rigid. I expected you to be curious. Rowan and I are... She's legacy. We're family. The word lands like a chair pulled from under me. I choose a different seat. Family has boundaries. Otherwise, it's just proximity and preference. He sets his hands on his hips, the stance that means a speech is coming. You said you wanted a partnership with growth. Growth is uncomfortable. Rowan opens my capacity. This is adult love. There it is again. That co-opting of language, the way a phrase gets filed down until it can be used to pry you open. Adult love also includes consent, I say, quiet enough that I can hear Scout's nails tick on hardwood as he settles between us. You don't get to hire a third party and hand me a revised job description. My phone buzzes on the console table. Noah. I lift my chin at Oliver, just a second, and check the screen. It's a photo, taken from across a lobby I vaguely recognize. Black and white tile. A ficus too glossy to be real. The Pearl District's favorite brand of engineered authenticity. In the foreground, Rowan, chatting with a leasing agent. In the corner of the frame, a clipboard tilted toward the camera. A second photo drops, zoomed. It's blurry and readable anyway. Application. Co-tenants, Rowan Pierce and Oliver Hart. No message. Noah doesn't editorialize. He never has to. For a beat, the house holds its breath with me. I hand the phone to Oliver. He looks. His face stays very still except for a twitch at one corner, like a fissure deciding if it wants to grow. We were exploring cliché, he says. It's a content initiative, intentional co-living. We would have set agreements. You'd have been primary. You already wrote the script, I say. You were just waiting to see if I'd read my lines. He inhales like he's about to lift something beyond his strength. You're catastrophizing. I'm noticing. I step aside and point at the boxes. Pick up. He stares at me as if the right sentence could reset the room. Then he moves, stacking 2 boxes and then a third, misjudging the weight until the bottom slips. I kneel without thinking and steady the corner, the way we almost rescue each other out of habit. I let go first. At the door, he pauses. You won't find someone who understands the future like I do. I'll risk finding someone who understands me in the present. The door shuts with a firmness that makes a picture frame tilt. I straighten it. Scout pads over and leans into me so definitively my knees bend. Later, I run water over a pan that remembers last night's salmon, and it feels like washing off a film I didn't know I'd been wearing. My phone lights up again. This time, Thomas Hart. I watch it ring out, then tap block. The relief is quiet and immediate, like a stubborn bolt finally turning. I sit at the kitchen table and open my laptop with the kind of dread I reserve for load calculations that don't balance. Something pings under my ribs, the distinct sense that there is one more beam I haven't checked. The registry fund tab is still open from the morning, innocent as frosting. I click into transaction history and start to scroll. Gifts, transfers, notes with hearts. So many tidy entries telling a story of generosity and celebrations that now feel like arcade tickets. And then, a line with a name that doesn't belong amid honeymoon suite and houseplant starter kit. My finger hovers over the trackpad as if I found a hairline crack and I don't want to breathe on it yet. Open Bonds Media, LLC. The page doesn't give me the full detail unless I click. My cursor floats over the line. I think of Oliver's voice. We would have set agreements. You'd have been primary. I think of Rowan's seat at the head of a table that wasn't hers, and of Marilyn's practice nod. I think of microphones. My thumb worries the edge of the keyboard. Scout shifts under my chair, a warm constant. Outside, a siren threads the street and fades. I click. The transaction expands, and with it, something in my chest, a soundless fracture traveling along a pre-existing fault. Numbers, date, destination, a memo field that tries to dress itself as art. I don't read it twice. I sit back and blink at the ceiling as if the house might have an answer it's been saving for me. It doesn't. It just settles, the way old houses do after telling you the truth. Okay, I think, and the word is no longer an ending. It's a plan. The next morning, my kitchen feels too clean. There's a kind of silence that comes after removing someone's belongings, a vacuum that hums just beneath the sound of your own breathing. I'm stirring coffee when my phone rings. The caller ID flashes Thomas Hart. I answer, thinking maybe, just maybe, it's civility. Nora, he begins, voice clipped like a business meeting. Do you understand what you've done? Yes, I say, because I do. You've embarrassed this family. You cost us $90,000. He's pacing. I can hear his shoes on tile. That was our gift to Oliver. You had no right to cancel without proper discussion. Your son made the discussion public, I reply evenly. He made the ultimatum. I made a decision. Don't get clever with me. You breached a promise. We have witnesses. I glance at Scout, who looks personally offended by loud noises. So do I, Thomas. You might want to check what breach of promise means in Oregon law before you make more threats. He sputters, You're unstable. Then it's lucky I'm not marrying into your stability, I say, and end the call. Minutes later, my neighbor Sharon, a civil attorney with the patience of a saint, texts me. He called me too, you know. Asked if I'd testify about your irrational behavior. I told him the only irrational thing was his tie collection. She adds a laughing emoji, but beneath it is something steadier. You're legally fine, Nora. Don't let them rattle you. I don't reply right away. I just breathe. The air feels lighter already. By noon, curiosity wins over exhaustion. I open my laptop, revisit that line item from last night's registry records, $12,000, Open Bonds Media, LLC. I click deeper. The memo field reads, Partnership Seed Funding, project, co-living documentary. My stomach turns cold. I send a screenshot to Oliver with one simple message. What is this? He calls instantly. His voice is syrupy, the same tone he used when pitching donors. It's nothing sketchy. Rowan and I were exploring a creative project about modern love, about reimagining relationships beyond traditional binaries. So you took money gifted for our future and invested it in your past? It's our evolution, he says. You don't see it now, but I hang up. 2 minutes later, another call. Grace, the wedding planner. Nora, I'm so sorry to bother you. I think an email just went to you by mistake. My stomach drops. What kind of mistake? I forwarded the event documents for the ceremony prep, but one of them wasn't meant for you. It was between Marilyn and me, dated 3 weeks ago. You might see it in your inbox. I'm already opening it. Subject line, Rowan ceremony remarks setup. The email reads, please coordinate a microphone for Rowan's short speech during the ceremony. We'd like it to symbolize Oliver's lifelong connections. I stare at the screen, pulse roaring in my ears. They'd planned her speech at our wedding. This wasn't improvisation at dinner, it was rehearsal. Grace whispers, I'm so sorry, Nora, I didn't know. It's not your fault, I say quietly, but thank you for confirming what I was afraid to name. After hanging up, I sit in the dim light of my office, the computer's glow cold against my hands. There's a sick kind of clarity that comes with realizing the truth had been a set piece all along. Every moment I thought was spontaneous. Every look, every nod, it had all been staged. Later that afternoon, the public unraveling begins faster than I expect. Oliver's family posts their own version of the story on social media. Sad to announce the cancellation of our son's wedding due to his fiancé's difficulty managing emotions and commitment fears. I don't respond. I don't have to. Small cities like Portland have a way of running gossip in both directions. 2 days later, Rowan drops a podcast episode titled Men with Fragile Boundaries. I play it once. She never says my name, but the subtext is as loud as the title. When people fear evolved love, she says, they weaponize jealousy. They confuse openness with threat. It's tragic how fear masquerades as morality. Her voice is calm, almost hypnotic. I picture her in a softly lit studio, the kind that sells Serenity for download. The episode circulates. Within hours, someone on Reddit connects dots. Court filings from Seattle, 2 years old. A restraining order filed against Rowan Pierce by a woman accusing her of psychological coercion under the guise of open relationships. Screenshots spread like cracks through glass. Advertisers withdraw. The Open Bonds Instagram goes private. By day 3, Oliver is trending locally, for all the wrong reasons. Comments fill with words like cult, emotional manipulation, gaslighting. I'd like to say I felt vindicated. Instead, I felt tired. Tired in the way a house must feel after standing through years of storms it was never built to weather. That evening, Marilyn leaves a voicemail. Nora, I hope you understand that this has gone too far. You've humiliated our family. Oliver's heart is broken. You need to correct these rumors. Her voice trembles at the end, not from guilt, but from fear. Fear of losing control over the narrative. I don't call back. Instead, I call Sharon. She laughs when I tell her about the voicemail. Let them try to spin it. They dug the hole. They can measure its depth themselves. And then she adds something I don't expect. But be careful, Nora. People like that don't just grieve the loss of control. They rebuild it. Watch for what they build next. Her words settle in me like a seed I don't yet know the shape of. I open my windows wide that night. Let the cold in, the kind that clears everything stale. Scout curls against my leg as if guarding the silence itself. I whisper into the dark, not to anyone, but to the space that used to hold Oliver's voice. Okay wasn't the end. It was the beginning of honesty. Outside, the wind shifts. Somewhere a train passes, the sound of something moving on fixed rails, heading somewhere new. But Sharon's warning echoes in my head. People like the Hearts didn't stop. They reorganized. And I had a feeling their next move was already in motion. And I was right. Because the next morning, in my inbox, an anonymous subject line appeared. You deserve to know the truth. The subject line blinked at me from my inbox like a warning light on an old bridge. You deserve to know the truth. No sender, no signature, just a single attachment, cofamilycharter.pdf. For a full minute, I just stared at it, pulse counting out the seconds. I knew opening it was stepping off a familiar shore, but curiosity is its own kind of gravity. I clicked. The document opened to a logo that looked like it belonged to a startup. Muted pastels, minimalist font, the Open Bonds Project, then page after page of language that made my skin crawl. Objective: to model sustainable, non-hierarchical emotional ecosystems through shared co-living and rotational intimacy. Participants: Oliver Hart and Rowan Pierce, leads. Nora Ellis, traditional partner, Phase 1 candidate. My name, in a document I never consented to. The rest was an architectural nightmare masquerading as enlightenment, charts detailing emotional labor distribution, shared financial membranes, and even rotation schedules for relational anchoring. It wasn't love, it was management. And then tang, halfway through the file, a section labeled Recruitment History, 4 other couples' initials, project phases, and integration notes. I copied the names into my phone, then cross-referenced what little I could online. Within an hour, I'd found 2 of them, both divorced. One had scrubbed every photo of their wedding from the internet. The other, Daniel and Mia H., still had a LinkedIn. I stared at his profile picture for a long time, wondering what kind of person reaches back into a stranger's life and asks, "Did this destroy you too?" Finally, I sent a cautious message. "Apologies for the intrusion. I think we were both involved in something connected to Rowan Pierce and the Open Bonds Project. Could we talk?" He called me within the hour. His voice was quiet, careful. "You're the Portland couple, right? I thought so." "Yeah, we were the Seattle pilot. Took me 2 years to understand what happened." He told me everything. How Rowan had inserted herself between him and his wife under the guise of collaborative intimacy. How she'd filmed their growth sessions, how the entire thing imploded when his wife realized Rowan had been transferring money out of their joint account. "They frame it like emotional evolution," Daniel said, "but it's just control. She convinces people that discomfort means enlightenment, that resistance is proof you're not evolved enough." When the call ended, I just sat there, the silence of my apartment roaring. Outside, a thin rain began, one of those Pacific Northwest drizzles that doesn't fall so much as linger. I watched it through the big front window, the glass turning my reflection ghost thin. And I realized Sharon had been right. They were rebuilding. The charter was proof. The fallout. By the end of the week, the Portland social circuit had a new obsession, the Hart scandal. Word spread that the Open Bonds registry transfer was under review by Oliver's nonprofit board. They suspended him pending investigation. When I ran into one of his former coworkers at a cafe, she lowered her voice. He called it a temporary sabbatical for alignment. They called it "Don't Come Back." Rowan went silent online for almost a month before resurfacing with a rebrand, Authentic Horizons. It lasted 4 days before sponsors withdrew again. Someone unearthed her old restraining order documents. Someone else found a GoFundMe she'd started for research into post-monogamous housing models. The comments turned brutal. As for the Harts, their curated world began to buckle. A rumor circulated at a charity gala about financial irregularities with their real estate holdings. Then came the headlines. Lake Oswego couple sells family estate amid losses. I wish I could say I took pleasure in it, but the truth is uglier. Watching them unravel didn't heal me. It just confirmed how deep the rot had been. The confrontation I didn't expect. It was nearly midnight when Oliver showed up again. I saw his silhouette through the frosted glass. A man carrying something heavy he couldn't name. Scout growled low, a warning. I opened the door only far enough for him to see that he wasn't welcome inside. He looked hollow. The careful polish was gone. "They took everything from me," he said. "My job, my reputation." Rowan vanished. "Maybe she just moved on to her next project," I said. He flinched. "You think this was all her? You think I didn't believe in what we were doing?" "That's the part that scares me," I replied. He pressed a folder into my hands. "Here, the original charter drafts. You should see how deep it went. Maybe then you'll understand I wasn't the villain." I didn't take it. "I already understand," I said. "You built a system that required my silence to function. And when I refused to be quiet, it collapsed. That's not villainy, Oliver. It's consequence." He looked past me into the apartment, maybe expecting warmth or forgiveness, or at least curiosity. He found none. "Do you still think you're the hero?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just stopped playing the role you wrote." He stood there for a heartbeat longer, then turned and walked away, the night swallowing the sound of his shoes. I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, and finally allowed myself to sit on the floor beside Scout. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from release. Epilogue of that week. The next morning, an alert pinged from a financial news site. Rowan Pierce declares bankruptcy in Arizona. 2 hours later, a mutual acquaintance texted, "The Harts sold their house, moving into a condo near downtown." It felt anticlimactic, almost merciful. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about that document. The precision of its manipulation, the way it mimicked the blueprints I lived by. Systems, diagrams, structures. They had tried to engineer emotions like architecture, but they'd forgotten the first rule of construction. You can't build stability on unmeasured ground. I saved a copy of the charter to a flash drive, labeled it Evidence, and slid it into a drawer I rarely opened. Not out of vengeance, out of memory. Proof of what happens when you let someone else redraw your foundation. That night, I took Scout for a walk along the river. The lights from the bridges shimmered on the surface, fractured but whole. I whispered to the water, "They built something rotten and called it love. I'll build something true and call it peace." And for the first time in months, the echo that came back didn't sound like loneliness. It sounded like freedom. 10 months later, my life looks nothing like the version that once fit neatly inside a Pinterest wedding board. And that's the best thing that ever happened to me. I sold the Craftsman house in Selwood, the one with too many memories hiding in its corners, and moved into a loft downtown. The building is a converted 1920s warehouse. Exposed brick, wide steel windows, a view of the Willamette that shifts color with every hour of the day. There's something poetic about living in a place built for function, not show. Scout loves it. He has a whole wall of glass to patrol and a dog park right below where everyone knows his name. I call him my security system and emotional support demolition expert. Work, too, has changed. I was promoted to lead a historic restoration project, a century-old bank being turned into mixed-use space. I spend my days sketching reinforcement plans and teaching younger engineers how to listen to what the old walls are trying to say before they decide what to change. The irony isn't lost on me. I'm rebuilding integrity for a living, one structure at a time. Last month, the project won a City Design Award for preserving authentic foundations while creating modern functionality. When I accepted it, I laughed quietly at how life loves metaphors. Therapy helped more than I expected. Dr. Chen, my therapist, doesn't waste time with platitudes. She once told me, "Boundaries aren't walls, Nora. They're the ground you stand on. Without them, you have nowhere to build." It stuck. We spent months unpacking how Oliver and his family weaponized therapy language, how words like growth and evolution became synonyms for control, how I learned to doubt myself every time I wanted something as simple as respect. Dr. Chen said something that changed everything. Real growth doesn't require you to disappear. It's a simple sentence, but I repeat it like a prayer. And then there's Daniel, the barista from the coffee shop below my loft. He has a rescue cat with an attitude and a quiet laugh that sneaks up on you. We talk about architecture and novels, and how he once built a treehouse for his niece that promptly fell apart but somehow still made her happier than anything he's built since. We're not rushing anything. No labels, no performance, just space. It feels like breathing. One Saturday, we went to a charity art auction. It was held in the same Riverside gallery Oliver's family used to sponsor. I didn't plan it that way. It just happened. The room glowed with gold light and clinking glasses. I was mid-conversation about recycled timber when I felt a strange stillness wash over me. I turned, and there he was. Oliver. He was wearing the event uniform. Black shirt, name tag, tray of champagne flutes. Working, not attending. For a heartbeat, our eyes met. He looked smaller. Not physically, just less certain, less curated. The kind of tired that comes from running out of other people's belief. For a second, I saw every version of him. The boy who smiled across a crowded room, the man who spoke in languages of healing while he wounded, and the stranger who stood now, pouring drinks for people who no longer remembered his name. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, maybe even apologize. But no words came. None were left. So I did the only thing that felt right. I nodded. Once. Softly. Then I turned back to Daniel, who was telling me about a sculptor he admired for letting imperfection breathe. No drama, no closure speech, just peace. That night, as we walked home along the river, Daniel asked quietly, "Did you know that guy from the auction? He couldn't stop looking at you." I smiled. Someone from my past. He didn't press, just nodded, slipped his hand into mine, and started talking about how the city lights reflect differently when it rains. And for the first time, I realized how beautiful ordinary could be. No grand philosophies, no experiments, just two people walking the same direction. Later, standing by the window, Scout asleep at my feet, I looked out at the dark water. My reflection was layered over the city skyline, new glass on old stone. I thought about everything that had happened, how easily I could have disappeared into someone else's vision, how a single word, okay, had once ended a life I thought I wanted and started the one I actually needed. Because sometimes okay isn't surrender, it's the sound a foundation makes when it finally holds. I whispered it again, softly this time, not as an ending, but as gratitude. Okay. Scout's ears flicked in his sleep, and somewhere outside, a barge horn echoed down the river, low, steady, moving forward. The city exhaled. So did I.